Thank you, John. This is so whippy. Okay. Say what?
Good technique.
I try.
Oh, no.
You have to be.
Get the elbow into it.
Yeah. You do this and so.
There you go. Here you go.
I don't know. Okay, so, welcome to tonight's meeting, with Jeff Blumenthal. I hear an echo.
Not for me.
Okay. Somebody was, okay. Still here. Well, this will be strange. Right, so, I guess I don't have a lot of things to say, except that we're gonna start the meeting now. And Barb's gonna get up and do her usual introductory stuff, and then we'll have some other little stuff, and Leonard will do his thing, and then Jeff will give his talk, and then I'll say, but before he does that, I'll say a few words about hoping his talk goes well, because we tried some experimental stuff, as usual. So we'll see. We'll give it a try. Okay, Barb, you're up.
Going to hand out some star maps here. I think we've got enough for everybody. So let me pass those around. If not, let me know. And if it gets too warm in here, please feel free to either adjust or turn off the thing or signal one of us and we'll take care of that. We want to thank the Mountain Messenger. My article was due 2 days ago, but she's giving me a few more days. So we appreciate Annette, the editor. And if you haven't seen it, we got the centerfold this time with this meeting tonight. All right, Jeff. And we want to thank the Coal Creek Canyon Park and Rec, who are our sponsors. And I also, we have a few new people, so let me just pass this around. If you haven't given us your email, please do. And so our next meeting will probably be March 22nd, which would be exactly 4 weeks from tonight, or the 29th, but we're not sure yet. Hopefully I'll have that in the Mountain Messenger for those of you who get that. And Susie said, don't go out on the deck. They're doing some repairs on that, I guess, in the next week. So she wanted to make sure everybody was safe. And just thank you all for coming. I think, we usually cover more astronomy, space stuff, but we are thrilled to be able to bring you all back down to Earth and have Jeff tell you about various explorers and around the world, very famous explorers, and then also how to do voluntourism too when you go out there. So I'll turn it back over to
Okay. So the first question then is, hey, John, you're hosting. Did anybody send you any pictures they want to show?
Just David Elmore and myself.
Okay, well, take it away. Do it.
Oh, all right. We're gonna do it first.
Yep, we're gonna put you up first.
All right, then hold on. World. Sorry, I deal with this all the time and it's gonna take 2 seconds.
Of course.
Of course. Where is it? Interesting. All right. We see this?
Yes.
Oh, good. So, advance, won't you? David Omar sent this to us yesterday, Barb and I, and this is the angelfish nebula. Now, to see the angelfish, you got to turn your head to the right, and because it was vertical. This is also known as the Skull Nebula. It's at the head of Orion, and he's working on this, but he wanted to share it with us. He's down in New Mexico at the observatory. He has a remote telescope down there, but he's down there goofing around, and I don't know. I can't wait to see this finished up. It'll be great. Um, some of my astrophotos, we've been having some, we had a spectacular sunset about 3 weeks ago, and this conjunction with Venus and the moon. And of course, right now you've got the whole, starting today, we have Mercury in the sky, although I did not see it tonight um, during sunset, but it's there. So we now have all 5 visible planets in the evening sky, and Uranus and Neptune are up there as well. So all the planets are in the evening sky. Now, don't worry about this too much because it's just a beautiful thing. The whole world isn't going to tip over on its side or anything like that. So after then having, at least it's been cloudy and stunning with the moon. This is down in New Mexico, Santa Fe. That red band was different. And that close up of it is pretty cool. Another cool. This was last night's sunset. And I was really struck by these shadows up underneath the clouds. Obviously. Just so y'all know that, not everything comes out perfectly. This is something I'm still working on. This is the Rosette Nebula. And it's really grainy. It's very noisy. I need to take some more data because it's just not enough. But, it's a work in progress. I will share this when we get all done. And then another work in progress is this is called the Orion Molecular Cloud Complex. And, this is, there's everything. Bellatrix, Betelgeuse is up in the upper left. Rosette Nebula over, which we just saw, is over there on the left. And then I still have some work to do. What's interesting to me is that over on the right is the Witch Head Nebula. This is a nebula. These nebulae you can't see except for the Great Nebula. Can't see them even with a large telescope. It requires some time, exposure time, and that thing came out just so plainly, along with the Barnard's Loop. This whole region surrounding Orion is one huge star-making complex. So, a few million years, a few 100 million years, there's going to be, many, 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 many more stars than there are in this scene, all because of this one thing, one complex cloud. Any questions before I take off? Anybody else got some images they want to share?
I think that's a no.
Okie dokie. Then it's all yours.
Okey dokey. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still figuring out how to deal with the Zoom screen up on the second TV, so. Pardon me. Exit full screen, that's what I want to do. And then I can grab this. And move it down here. Okay, so that makes Leonard next, right?
Okay, I'll do my little thing. There's so much going on. Take notes, gonna get fast, gonna get brutal. Gonna be amazing.
Hold on till I share the screen. From the beginning. Okay,
it.
so you guys see it okay there, John?
Yep.
Let's get the clicker working here.
I got the February 22nd right. That was the main thing. It's going so fast. I don't know what day
Okay.
it is.
There you go.
Okay.
Those two buttons.
These two buttons.
Well, those two buttons should work.
Okay. Okay, well, let's start. Our favorite Rocketeer. Get ready for this next epic Starship launch. It's probably Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, could be definitely headed toward next week. Not quite sure what this flight will do, but Musk is going to launch the next Starship. Tremendous capability, tremendous booster. Never been done before. The last flight was pretty gamey. He had a good liftoff on Starship, and that booster stage actually flew back to the launch pad, and they captured it in the launch tower. It looks like it's going to be a replay of that flight because the Starship blew up kind of over the ocean and was not successful, but they learned a lot. You always learn a lot when you have failure. So we'll see how that flight comes, but watch for that for next week. And Bob Grimm is going to do a little thing about Blue Ghost lunar lander. It's in moon orbit. It's got Bob's experiment along with 9 other NASA payloads. And why don't you, Bob, you want to do something on that just here?
Sure, I see a few things.
Yeah, I mean, this is great to have somebody that's actually, you feel okay?
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
It's out of my hands. And if it crashes, I got another one, so.
Yeah, really. Why
Yeah.
don't you sit down here so you get the
Oh,
microphone?
And just so you, for those of you who weren't here last time, Bob was our last speaker and told us all about this mission, so we.
No, I told you
Yeah.
about, I told you about Artemis.
He's from Southwest Research Institute. And
So, yeah, so I've spoken on this instrument previously. It's got the mouthful name of Lunar Magnetotelluric Sounder. Magnetotelluric means magnet and telluric means electric. So all it does is it measures electric and magnetic fields, but not just a static field, how waves impinging on the moon change with time, and those actually penetrate in the inside of the moon. And we're gonna try to say something about the interior composition and temperature of the moon from it. So the launch was January 15th. It was great. It's been a really smooth mission so far. I was there. A couple of glitches along the way, a couple of data dropouts, a couple of whiny payloads. But all things considered, it's going really well. So what you see in this picture on the left is the radio antenna. In the middle is an experiment called Lexi. It's basically an X-ray telescope that measures emissions from X-rays coming from where the solar wind makes a bow shock against the Earth's magnetosphere. So they're trying to learn more about the nature of the Earth's magnetosphere and space weather from that. And then on the right, a little thing in the corner, is any of these? Yeah, there it is. This is our magnetometer mast. The little white thing at the top is the magnetometer. Everybody else has been like this. These Lexi people do like a health check every day. They turn their thing on, make sure it works, turn it off. We said we don't want to do anything. We're just going to go to the moon, turn us on, we're on the moon. It's fine. They have high voltage and stuff that's kind of touchy, so they do want to kind of keep an eye on it. But our thing, very simple: turn it on, take data. And but then they said, well, do you want to do a health check anyway? And I kind of read between the lines, like, oh, you really want to have a press release that says every payload is operating successfully. So, okay, we'll turn it on. So we turned it on for 18 minutes. There's nothing useful in terms of time varying to measure going to the moon that this instrument can do. The lander has a gigantic static signal. It's a, big hunk of metal. And for a few minutes, the radio cut out, and we actually saw the field go down when the radio cut out. So we know that we know the lander makes a huge signal. We know the radio makes another signal, both of which would like destroy our signals if we were trying to take real data. That's why when this gets to the moon, this thing will extend like up to off the screen. It's a mast that will go up and it'll carry the sensor away from the lander body so that we can measure the magnetic fields. We also have electrodes to measure electric fields. They're kind of shot out from the lander, but because they're caged and housed right now, even when we turned on, there's nothing useful that they're measured. So again, we want to be on the moon. That happens a week from tonight. Actually, like at 1:45 in the morning, next Sunday morning. It's going to be streamed on NASA TV and well, it was NASA Plus now, right?
Yeah.
And YouTube. Firefly, the company, has a YouTube channel. So if you feel like you want to be up and watch the excitement, it's there for you. Our team, our small team, half a dozen people, will assemble at our ops center in Boulder, and we'll watch it, and we'll have a few beers, whether it works or not. And then, yeah,
Do they have a live camera looking at the landing, do you think?
they have navigation cameras,
Okay.
and I don't know if the plan is to stream them or not. So far, we have not seen, I mean, they have done videos and posted it from this camera, kind of it just gonna fly up to the moon. So I don't know what they're actually gonna, for us, all the practice has been, I mean, our comms, we have a comm loop to talk to one person at Firefly who runs the payloads. We can't listen to like the mission control loop. And all we ever hear is like when we're doing the practices and when they're doing some burn, there's actually an Excel spreadsheet that they just write down what's happening. We're like, oh, that's great. Burn happened. So yeah, they're not, I wouldn't say they're secretive, but they're also just not kind of like laying everything out there. Maybe for the landing, they will. Maybe it's like, it's time, just gonna lay it out there and see what happens. So the landing happens, there's a bunch of activity. We don't get started until a day later. So we'll take, Sunday off, get some rest, come back Sunday night and get ready for Monday morning to get busy. We should have really useful data in the first several hours. And then hopefully during the first week, we'll start to figure out something what's going on. We have 2 weeks on the moon. That's how long a day is on the moon. And the lander goes into darkness, and that's the end of the mission. There is, interestingly, an eclipse on March 14th. You'll see a lunar eclipse here. We'll see the sun disappear behind the Earth up there. So it's going to be, I'm not sure how scientifically useful it is, but it's going to be cool. So fingers crossed, stay tuned.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's really exciting. I mean, what's happening? We have more hardware, I think, going to the moon either now en route or soon to be launched, and I'll get to that. Just to close on this other spacecraft that was launched at the same time as the Blue Ghost that Bob's on. Japan has a lander that is, I gotta get my notes out. That lander, the iSpace lander is, I think it went past the moon. It's coming back. It's going to try to get into orbit around the moon, and it should attempt that in early May. But that mission hurled major hardware from US and Japan. So, we got that going. And let me go to the next thing that's coming up. And that is on the 26th of this month, we have another lunar shot going, Intuitive Machines 2. is another lander that's sponsored, has a lot of payloads on there with NASA. And on that same launch, there's what they call Lunar Trailblazer. And Barb and I were lucky enough to go see it at the Lockheed Martin Bunny Suitville. And so we had to dress up for that and look at it. It just basically it's a giant cube that we saw. And but it's going to go into lunar orbit, and it has all of 2 experiments on it, I think, 2 or 3. But the main point of the lunar orbiter is to look for water ice. And this is a Caltech-led spacecraft. And Lunar Trailblazer is that, because we gotta, if we're ever gonna go to the moon and do any kind of a long-term stay, it's the water ice issue, and whether or not it's there, and what quantities, and where is it, and how do we find it. So Lunar Trailblazer will go into lunar orbit. The intuitive machines that'll take off here next week will land. It takes a bit of time to get there, I think. I can't remember the date they're going to land. But anyway, there's a lot of hardware going to the moon. Okay, and along with that, China just about a week ago announced, where they're headed, and they're looking at a human landing on the moon in the 2030 timeframe. They're naming their lander. They clearly have a flag, and they also have built a lunar rover that they're going to deploy. It's a 2-seater spacecraft. Kind of an interesting, it's Apollo-esque, it's all China in their attempt to put humans on the moon. And again, in the 2030 timeframe is what they're looking for. And that first mission will lead to what they call the International Lunar Research Station. They're very keen on putting a lunar base together, a lot of robotics plus human intended capability. So always keep an eye on China. They're busy, and they're going to be a very interesting story coming up. The last week, I've written more about junk coming from space, and the picture on the left there is a pressure cylinder that came in from a Falcon 9 SpaceX rocket over Poland, and it dropped some, it survived re-entry, landed. The guy went out to his backyard and found the thing laying there. And then just 2 days ago, from in the Bahamas, a kind of a nose cone part of a Blue Origin rocket that took off about a month ago, floated in on the sands there. And there was a great quote by the woman. Did I put it on here? I can't remember. Yeah, she goes, let's see, a chunk of rocket fairing from Blue Origin's New Glenn flight that happened on January 16 washed ashore in the Bahamas. And she went out and found it and posted on February 17th. Judy Forberry posted on the Hopetown Bulletin Group website, put the pictures on there. And she goes, does anyone have any muscle power to pull this spaceship debris up onto the beach? A high tide will take it away, and not only is it a hazard to navigation, but it is an historical find. It is just south of Breezy Point. And what's really kind of interesting, and I didn't put it on here, but that piece of debris, if you look to the right, there's a signature panel. And all the people that worked on the rocket that made this flight signed this thing. So all their signatures washed up on the beach. So it's pretty interesting. On the chopping block, you know, with all the Trump and Elon Musk government, you know, whatever is happening, you know, we're at a very interesting point with NASA, and they're waiting their turn to go through, you know, a downsizing of the staff and the chaos that ensues by the government forces that are there. But what this means for the Orion Artemis program is not clear. There's some discussion of canceling the Space Launch System, which is the NASA-led vehicle of choice. The thing costs a lot of money to launch per launch. And, you know, Elon Musk, I assume, has recused himself of you know, being involved in decision-making here. But, you know, he wants a Starship to fly straight and true as well. So we'll see how this goes. But I mean, we're at another point when we thought we had a space policy that allowed NASA to fine-tune where we want to go with humans in the future, back to the moon, and then on to Mars. We'll see how this plays out. It's going to be very interesting in the next week or so. They have a new NASA administrator that has been picked by Trump. He's going to have to testify. Jared, what is it, Isaacman? And he's coming in, and we'll see if he survives the hearing. But he's got a lot of this guy is, in my view, I don't think he knows what he's walking into. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be very terrifying for any person to take NASA on at this time. So we'll see. The big thing that happened, Moon Pie decided that they were going to rename Florida, because if Trump can do the Gulf of Mexico to America, Moon Pie decided that Florida should be called Moon Pie Town. And if you read that, I mean, it says, you know, get over it, you know. That was their view. And I just, last couple things as we tie into Jeff's talk, you know, there are some really new trends in tourism. And it turned out that a travel magazine did a new survey of where things are going in the future. I mean, space tourism is great if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars to go. But on the other hand, you know, if you have less money, you can go to these resorts that are popping up all over the place to look at the sky and do your thing. The Zion is one of them.
Yeah, there are quite a few, the Maldives. Okay. And part of, we were glad, this is part of a whole article. Okay.
There's been some great articles about stargazing and what
Yeah,
the tourism industry is looking at for having people that don't normally go on these astronomy things go out and look at the heavens while you got time.
and the Zion one looks really good. They're tents. And actually the beds in them have a area that's clear right over them, so you can lay there and look at the stars. Of course, if you ended up there on a cloudy day or a rainy day, I'm not sure how much fun that would be. And it's pretty expensive. It looked like it's in the range of $350 a night, but you get s'mores with them.
And you got a
Free
fireplace.
s'mores, and then they have a restaurant there and stuff.
So it's like Zion National Park?
Yeah, it's near Zion.
Yeah.
And I partly chose that one because you and Dewey and Leonard and I recently were talking about Zion.
Oh, yeah, and there's gonna be one, that might be it, right
Yeah.
there, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah,
Never
this-
mind.
yeah, and we had heard about this, but
Mind meld.
Jeff mentioned this too. Do you want to say a few words?
No,
Oh, okay. So they're just finishing it. They're supposed to be letting people in to stay there. You know, it's a stargazing area. They have an outside area where you can set up telescopes and stuff like that too. And they're supposed to open in the spring of, you know, like in a few months. They're 90% booked up. I think some of their contributors actually are going to stay there first, but there's 10%, and I'm not sure if I looked at what that is a night, but it's pretty expensive, but you know, it sounds like it's going to be a great facility too. And then there are lots of others, you know, we could post those to our website. You know, Iceland and a lot of dark sky places around the world this article had.
You should
Okay.
mention that Cosmos place is down near the sand dunes. It's here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, you lived
Next
quite
to
near there.
Sanders.
Yeah, right, John?
Yes.
Have you
Yeah,
seen
I
it?
lived in. No, I didn't know it was there when we were in Crestone. My understanding though is it's booked out for years,
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
90%. It's like you can't get in it for years.
okay. The other thing that I forgot to put on here is, there is a space tourism launch by New Shepard, the Blue Origin is gonna launch another suborbital vehicle with about 5 or 6 people on board. I think that happens, it's coming up on February 25 next week. So watch for that. That's gonna be an exciting suborbital trip for 5 or 6 people, and that's part of the Blue Origin space tourism concept. So with that, I think Jeff is next, and let's do an intro.
I got a question for you. Lon.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of space tourism, I was wondering if you had heard anything about this. There was this company that was working on a system where they would have this big balloon
Yeah,
that would carry a bunch of people up
yeah,
and to the edge of space. They're not
Right,
going to space,
right.
but it's still a pretty cool view to drift. And then I saw something that said they went bankrupt.
yeah, they have, we know those people pretty well.
Is it space? or
Yeah, he was a former biospherian, and she's a real interesting woman that also was there. And, you know, they just had a lot of technical problems, and it cost a lot of money to do the testing. And I guess I don't know if bankrupt sounds kind of final, but I think they're trying to restructure their company.
Okay.
Now, there are three other companies that are actually looking at these stratospheric flights for the general public. So they're not the only ones doing it, but they got pretty far down the pike and then wound it up in financial issues. But yeah, the whole idea about high flying space tourists up to you know, the edge of space to near space and having cocktails on the way up is still viable. And we'll see how many people want to sign up for that thing. You do get to keep your helmet, you know, in case the door blows out. Anyway, yeah, I think there are other companies that are doing it. So I think that'll become some part of you know, a new kind of tourism, high altitude.
It sounded like a cool idea to me because it was in a totally different price range.
Yeah, oh
from
yeah,
Going up in a rocket flight.
yeah, again, and you get cocktails on the way up. That's all I heard, I was ready.
And if you need to use the restroom, there's gravity.
Yeah, yeah,
So.
that was the other part.
Yeah.
But you have to pay for it, it was extra, it was an extra charge.
Oh, is that?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, and let's do Jeff.
So. Thank you, Leonard. Okay, before Barb does her little introduction here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get things set up for Jeff to give his talk. And I just want to give you guys here and the folks at home a heads up. We're trying a thing where he's going to show a video that's actually from a website. And so sort of partway through the PowerPoint presentation, we're gonna stop and kill the PowerPoint and put up the video, you watch the video. And when we were doing it earlier today to test things out, it occasionally stopped, but it would be okay. And for a while, and then it kind of got better. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So that's just a heads up. So I'm gonna set the computer up, and Barb, you can do an introduction.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, most of you probably saw the description of Jeff's talk, and that's why you're here. But wanted to say a few words about him. One, we are very glad to have his wife, Joan. Can you wave your hand with us as well? She's an adventurer as well. And Jeff's a skier, and as well as all these other things he's done. And if you saw that right up, you probably saw he's been to Tibet and Antarctica or North Pole. Oh, no, I don't have that in my notes. Which is it?
I'll tell you later.
Oh, yeah, he'll, so I won't go into a lot of detail. But he's the editor of Expedition News. Can people actually, can our group subscribe to
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that that's on our website. And let's see, he lives in Boulder, he and Joan. And he's the chair of the Rocky Mountain chapter. And my other question is, for your meetings, can any of our group go there, or
Yes.
do they
Yeah.
have to be members first?
No, they can come.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll make sure everybody knows about that. And Leonard did a presentation probably about 5 years ago on one of his books, the Mars book, there at the meeting. And so he's going to talk to us about the world's greatest modern day explorers and voluntourism. And he has some of his books at the back. The Get Sponsored is one of them, and then Travel with Purpose, about volunteerism. And he's also going to, so he'll have those for sale and signing, personalizing too, if you'd like. And he's also going to share with us a very interesting and inspiring personal story too. I'll let you do that. So.
Thank you.
All right.
I guess you gotta be funny. You know, ever since humans crawled out of the primordial soup, they had this burning desire to see what was on the other side of the hill. They had to go up there. They had to get to see what was up there. And then they would come back and they would sit around the fire and talk to all the other humans about what they saw. And that's exploration. And this group talks a lot about space exploration. My focus tends to be more on exploration here on Earth, and there's certainly plenty to talk about. I want to thank Barbara and Leonard for inviting me up. Leonard did talk to a meeting at the Explorers Club. You know, coming up here from Boulder, I feel like a flatlander, but I'll definitely get over it. So I'll talk a little about adventure, and I'll talk about something that personally happened to me. Well, this is where it all started for me. This was my first telescope, and what a beauty that was. And this is genuine cardboard along the edge. And look at that tripod. It had little wing nuts that you could set it on. So I upgraded, I think, dramatically. And there you go. That's a C8, a Celestron 8 Schmidt Cassegrain. And what's the first thing that you say to yourself when you first look through the Celestron C8 at Saturn? What's the first thing you say to yourself? Should have got the 12. Should have gone to 16. Well, until you get, Mount Palomar, it's never going to be big enough, but there it is. I didn't know how heavy it would be with the tripod, but hopefully. And what's the first thing when your buddy comes over to look at Saturn? What's the first thing he says when he sees Saturn through your Schmidt Cassegrain Celestron C8? He goes, "It's so small." Oh, you never say that to an amateur astronomer, that it's too small. And I'm hoping to get it out so I can, I've got how many days left? 6 days left to see the planet lineup. First, a little bit about myself. I grew up in the mountains the Catskill Mountains, 90 miles northwest of New York. Top elevation was 4,000 feet, which was Slide Mountain up there. I grew up at 1,500 feet, and yet we still called it the mountains. And when you're in New York City and it's hot and you don't have air conditioning and it's 1950, where would you go? You would go to the mountains. And where would you stay? You would stay at one of 538 hotels, 50,000 individual bungalows. These were shacks in the woods, all grouped together with a main casino in Sullivan and Ulster counties. And so the highlights of the Catskills that took place from the 40s to the 40s to the 60s. And this is the town I grew up in, founded in 1804. We called it Monticello. It was named after Monticello. Back in the early 1800s, we have a Libertyville, we have a Jeffersonville up in Sullivan County, 90 miles from New York. And this is Monticello, so that's how we said it. The family, my dad bought a department store, and there he is. I'm happy to say he's still with us at the age of 97. And when you grow up and your family owns a department store, you do everything it takes to make that store run. So I was shortening pants, I was straightening stock. I was even on Easter, I was even the Easter bunny. This is the only remaining photo, Polaroid, by the way, of me as the Easter bunny. But the part-time job I really loved up there was working at the famed Concord Hotel. And it was the world's largest nightclub at the time. I had no seniority as a kid, 18-year-old, just out of high school. So I got the tables back here with the people in wheelchairs ordering club soda. And believe me, they did not tip. And there's a little jacket. Oh, it's a Concord, get it? Concord, Paul Revere. But I got to see every act. And my two favorite acts were these two. I've shown this to college groups, they have no clue. Right over their head. Funniest man alive was Don Rickles, totally unwoke as they possibly can get. All I remember about Milton Berle is that he had like shoe paste, shoe polish, black shoe polish on his head. So he would come through. Back then, I wasn't very good in sports except for skiing. That was my one sports, but I couldn't care about the team sports. But I loved collecting things. I collected typewriters. I collected cameras. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I collected, anybody know what that is? That is a American commemorative stamp plate block. I had an album of plate blocks. And I had collected that age 10 to 14. Then I discovered girls and I kind of gave up on it. But now, 10 years later, it's time to just, divest myself, maybe cash in my riches. It was in an album. I'm in New Canaan, Connecticut. I'm taking the train in. The album, I didn't even want to put it in the overhead. I might forget it. Wrapped in tissue paper. I go to Madison Square Garden to the big stamp coin show at Madison Square Garden. I take it and I say, hi, I've got these stamps. I wonder what you offer to me. I show it to the first booth. The guy says, nah, use it as postage. I'm going, what? He says, I can't believe this. I go to the next booth and that guy says, I'll give you 10 under face value. So he got 10% under face. I said, how could that's 4 times, so that's 16 cents. You're going to take off $1.60? No, 1.6, whatever it is. He was going to give me 10. I said, why are you going to give me 10 underface? That'll take me a lot of time to pull it out of the album. And I couldn't believe it. Here's my cherished collection. But then I started collecting these. Who knows what these are? Insulators. I would walk along a train track and I'd collect these babies. And don't laugh. I mean, there's a lot to it. You've got drip points, of course. You've got the wire ridges, you've got the crown, you've got the threads. There's a lot to insulators. They were worth 1965, they were worth about $2. 25, they're worth about $2. Now, they just made too many of these. But payday for me as a young kid, as a collector, coins. And my specialty was mercury dimes. Anybody notice anything different about this mercury dime? Anybody? Elliot? You see anything different about this dime? This dime, what, the little wings in the head? Well, it's a little bit worn. This dime, which I found in my mother's purse. I was always looking in my mother's purse for a change because I was like collecting these coins, and there was silver. This dime is a very rare 1942 over 41. This is a misstripe dime. This dime is now worth $500. So, and it cost me nothing because I said, Mom, can I have this dime? And she gave me the dime. Little did she know that it was a 42 over 41. But yes, I knew this. Now my dimes, besides this one, which is in the safety deposit box, my other dimes, I brought it to a coin dealer in Boulder, Tebow. He said, yeah, I'll give you $1.20 for the dimes. Okay, that's not bad. $1.20. I said, well, what are you going to do with them? You going to, give it to a collector? He goes, no, we melt them down. We melt them down. And I just died when he told me that. So I'm a little disillusioned about collecting. So I grow up. I'm not into collecting that much anymore. And I spent 50 years in the public relations business, working for DuPont, Orvis fly fishing, home and camping, Michelin, the rubber soles, and it was a pretty good career. And during this time, I met a group called the Explorers Club. This is an international exploration society. It's based in New York. There are 35 chapters around the world, 3,900 members. I'm privileged to run the Rocky Mountain chapter. And our members include all the Apollo astronauts, the Mercury astronauts, Cook, Perry, Amundsen, Shackleton. I'm in a meeting next to Buzz Aldrin. I'm in another meeting, Neil deGrasse Tyson, James Cameron, Jane Goodall, and I'm such a groupie for these people. These people are amazing. And now through the wonders of Dewey Science, we're going to try and show you a 90-second film about the Explorers Club. I think the best way is to just shut this down. Yeah, we can do this. Then it works. Oh, look at that. Oh, no, it's not. Are you kidding me? Ah. Well, you sure?
What's this video? You can find on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on Vimeo. No, this one's on Vimeo.
YouTube.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
Vimeo.
Hit it again. There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
And you hit play. And
Alrighty. By the way, John, interrupt if you don't hear any audio on this. In case
Okay.
No, okay?
Among countless notable achievements in exploration. 5 firsts achieved by our members define the legacy of the Explorers Club. 1909, the North Pole. 1911, the South Pole.
It's a little annoying.
1953, the highest point on Earth, summiting Mount Everest. 1960, the lowest point on Earth, the Marianas Trench. 1969, the surface of the moon, the Apollo 11 mission. By contributing to the famous Firsts Fund, you are supporting education outreach, grant programs, headquarters for Old Congress Building, archives, and club operations. These initiatives will help foster the next generation of explorers and future firsts. Your gift shares your belief in how vital it is to foster the spirit of exploration and will support programs critical to fulfilling our mission.
You can look it up too. and hear it without the interruption, so I apologize for that. Okay. Here we go. Now we'll go back to our regularly scheduled appointment.
Already in progress.
Countless notable achievements in exploration. 5 firsts.
Okay, now I just have to make sure I could, okay, I did not lose Zoom. That's my word. You're going to
Well-
slideshow from the current slide.
And there we go. Well, I gotta say, one of my most exciting times was we had a space dinner where it was a dinner all themed around space. Would you share your cab with this guy? And it was my one opportunity to talk to Carl Sagan. Hero for me, I'm sure a hero for many of you. I read Cosmos, and I said to him, so what's up with that billions and billions? And he told me that he never said billions and billions. It was Johnny Carson. He had been on the Carson show many times, and Carson parodied him, and that just kind of stuck with Carl Sagan. So it was kind of an exciting time to share a cab. My claim to fame, sharing a cab with Carl Sagan. But it was just brilliant when he talks about pale blue dot when you're up in space. So look that up if you haven't heard of that. Many other explorers that I worked with. One was this guy, Norman Vaughan, a great American hero. Norman was on the 1928-1930 Byrd expedition. And it turns out that back at that time, nothing in our Antarctica was named. So Byrd said to Vaughan, hey, Norman, we're going to name that Mount Vaughan. And Pete, we're going to name that Mount Pete. And Joe, that's Mount Vaughan, about a 10,000-foot mountain in Antarctica, had never been climbed, 1928, never been climbed, and had never been climbed since until Norman got enough sponsorship together, and Norman climbed the mountain in Antarctica named after himself and was the first one to the top of that mountain. What a great inspirational story. Norman's theme, his catchphrase was dream big and dare to fail, which is kind of like rockets blowing up in space, today. But that was his theme. And so here's Norman. They lit 89 birthday candles. Well, they tried to light it. It was too cloudy. There's this guy, and there's his wife, Carolyn. Carolyn was 38 years younger than him. And I said to Norman, your wife is 38 years younger? I said, what's going to happen when there's a death? And he goes, find a new wife. So, right. And that's the way he talked. Norman would go on from 1928. He served in World War II as a dog musher. And there was a point in World War II over Greenland in the early 40s when 2 B-17s and 6 P-38 Lightnings, you're shaking your head, landed on Greenland in perfect condition, except they ran out of gas. Perfect condition. And Norman was tasked with going back. Well, one B-17 pilot had a Norden bomb sight. The second biggest secret of World War II was a Norman bomb sight. The first secret was the atomic bomb. Norman was tasked to going back. Well, the first one was blown up by the pilot. The second pilot, during his debrief, they said, Joe, did you blow up the bomb site? And Joe said, oh my God. No, this is in his book, Norman's book. He says, no, I just forgot to blow it up. Norman had to go back to the plane and actually physically take it with the right tools, bring it back on his dog sled and rescue the Norden bomb site. They refurbished it and went on another plane. And it was one of the ways that we won World War II. It's a great, great story. And you can learn more about it by looking at normanvaughan.com. And some of the explorers were not great heroes, but they had just weird concepts. This man, Reed Stowe, what he wanted to do, he wanted to go on an analogous Mars mission. And he calls me up looking for sponsorship. And I'm like going, oh God, what's this? What's an analogous Mars mission? And he says, well, I'm going to get on my sailboat and I'm going to set off. and I'm not gonna touch land for 3 years. I said, well, how's that gonna work? We can get the, yeah, and without resupply. And I said, well, how's that gonna work? He says, well, I'm gonna have a desalinator. I'm gonna catch rainwater. I said, what are you gonna eat? Sprouts? I said, what are you gonna do for protein? He says, well, fish. I said, 3 years at sea without resupply, you're gonna be talking to the fish, much less eating the fish. But he did it, 1,152 days. I went out to meet him. Yeah, I met his girlfriend. He met this, well, now this is another story. The girlfriend was with him on the boat. And a little into the trip, she's getting seasick and she's got to get off the boat. Well, it wasn't seasickness, it was morning sickness. She gets off the boat, has his child. He doesn't see the child until the child's about 2.5 years old. And I go, Reed, yeah, you guys got pregnant, but big story, big sign. Welcome back, Reed, behind him. Another interesting character that I really love knowing is Barbara Hillary. Barbara Hillary was looking for funding so that she could ski to the North Pole. But when they say they ski to the North Pole, it's really the last degree. And this is a thing. To ski to the North Pole, you ski the last degree. And that's 69 miles. And she did it. She skied the last, at the age of 75, she went to the geographic North Pole by skiing the last degree to the pole. Then she says to me, and she raised the money. North Pole trip, it was self-funded, and she got a little bit of sponsorship for that. Now she says to herself, I want to ski to the South Pole. Same deal, last degree to the South Pole. And that's what she does. She uses these big wide skis, big wide bunny boots, pulling a sled behind her with a guide, with a group. She skis to the South Pole. And by the way, there is, Elliot, pay attention, there's a pole at the South Pole. But since the ice sheet keeps moving, they have to move it around to the exact center of the South Pole. And there it is. Well, funny thing, she wants to know what other Black woman ever went to the North Pole. Can't find any record of that. She says to me, Jeff, I'm the first Black woman to the North Pole. This is, you know, in the 1990s. And I said, no, this was about in the 2000s. I said, impossible. There has to have been another Black woman to the North Pole. She goes, prove me wrong. I'm Googling Black woman North Pole minus Barbara. Can't find it. Then, because she went to the South Pole, and there had been Black women to the South Pole, she's now recognized on Wiki as the first, where is it? The first known Black woman to reach the North Pole. She reached the South Pole, becoming the first African-American woman of record, the first Black woman to reach both poles. So here she is, she breaks a record at the age of 75, which I think is amazing. But what really impressed me when I'm having a corned beef and rice sandwich at Pat's Delicatessen in New York, there she is up on the wall. That really impressed me. Now, in exploration, there's still lots of mysteries out there, of course, like where's Amelia Earhart? They're still looking for her. You still see her name up there. They did a sonar look down of the water, and they thought they saw her plane. And then later it was found out that it was just a rock. And sometimes rocks are just rocks. They're not Amelia Earhart's Lockheed 10E Electra. So, but there's another mystery that's involved, and the mystery dates to 1924. And the mystery involves a camera, no, that's the back, hold on. A camera that looks like this. This is a Kodak VPK autographic camera. Now, you know why they call this camera? There's a little advance here. So Mallory and Irvine attempt Everest, 1924. Mallory and Irvine disappear on Everest at that date. So the question is, we know they carried a camera just like this. And you know why they call the camera autographic? Do you ever see old black and white photos and it says etched into it, Aunt Bessie, you know, in front of Niagara Falls, and it's etched into the negative? They do it with this. The autographic camera came with a little stylus. You open the back door, You write on the negative, close it, advance the film after you took it, and when it's developed, you've etched into the negative and it says Aunt Bessie, and that's the autographic. So Mallory and Irvine were known to carry this camera. All right, so what happened to them? They disappeared. 1999, they find George Mallory. 1999. Just last year, they find Sandy Irvine's foot. They find his foot. How do we know this is Sandy Irvine's foot? Well, apparently, back in those days, you used to have your name on your clothing. You used to have a little label that maybe some of you remember that going to camp, and your mom would sew a little thing on it. Well, it says right here, Irving. So they know that's his foot. They don't know where the rest of him is. But the mystery continues. Where's the camera? Why are we interested in the camera? Because if the camera was kept in the cold, if the camera was kept away from cosmic radiation, there's a chance that the film could be developed and solve one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Did Mallory and Irvine summit Everest? So stay tuned. Actually, now they think the camera's just swallowed up by a glacier and may just show up 100 years from now. And that would be a big story. So being involved in exploration, being interested in the outdoors, and with the Explorers Club, I signed on to become a chaperone on a trip to Antarctica. I'll show you that just briefly. Antarctica, highest, windiest, coldest continent on Earth. And the banana belt of Antarctica happens to be the Antarctic Peninsula. Anybody been there to this? You have been. And you went across the Drake, right?
Yeah, the Drake Passage.
The Drake Passage. The Drake Passage. I crossed the Drake in this ship, not very luxurious, 65 high school students, 20 chaperones on a 278-foot Russian ship. This is the luxurious dining room where the seats are bolted down. And the window, here's the view from the window going across the Drake. Sky, water, sky. Well, there weren't many people in the cafeteria because it's the roughest, toughest bit of water on the planet. But what they say is, if you don't throw up crossing the Drake, you're getting ripped off. You're not getting your money's worth. I got my money's worth, believe me. So when you do arrive in Dewey, oh, I mean, this is what you see. And yes, the icebergs are bigger below than they are on top. You're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And these are bergies, the little icebergs that float around. And if you broke off a piece of that and put it in a glass, the glass would start bubbling because you're releasing air that's trapped in the ice for thousands of years. Did you do that? You have a cocktail with it? Of course, this is the thing.
Yeah, they actually went out and got some
Yeah.
deep blue ice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. These are certain things you do in Antarctica, like take a polar plunge. They put a rope around your waist and a life jacket, and you can jump off the ship. And then they pull you in. But this kind of gives you a sense of how massive the place is and how tiny your ship is. And these are the zodiacs that they would take you out on. And then to be, with 10,000 nesting penguins, this is loud. They're all screeching at the top of their lungs. But it's just a memorable, just a great memorable experience. And you can't take a bad picture in Antarctica. That's what I learned. It's just every picture you take is just amazing. We got on the Zodiacs. We went on the part of the land and we did some ice core studies. And it's like Jackson Hole with an ocean. It really is just phenomenal. And this is at 1 a.m. in the morning. So if you need a good screenshot, this is the place to go. Now, this is the group, Students on Ice, and they have scholarships for bright high school students. They could qualify for a scholarship to go to Antarctica. Then I went to Nepal. I'm a really bad tourist. I can't sit on a beach with an umbrella and a drink. I just have to be doing something, which is the basis of my book called Travel with Purpose, which I'll mention briefly. If you are blind in Nepal, it's a death sentence for you and a crisis for your family. Because you are a mouth with no hands. You can't feed yourself. You can't find the bathroom, can't go to the bathroom. You can't, there's so much you can't do, and you're dependent on the family. And blindness, you know, in a country where 30% live on only $14 per month, is a real crisis. Yet many of the people there are blind only because of cataracts. How many people have had cataract surgery? Yeah. So cataract, with the lens of your eye, which becomes, it starts to yellow and becomes opaque. Well, in Nepal, because they don't have access to medical care and they're in remote villages, that lens in their eye, which we all ran to the ophthalmologist when things got a little bit cloudy, they're blinded by their cataracts. So they could spend 3, 4, 5 years blind, totally blind. Yet for a $15 operation that lasts 6 minutes, they can get their vision back. It's an amazing procedure. It's probably one of the most gratifying procedures in the medical community. So I went down there with a group from New York Eye and Ear, and we decided that we would conduct cataract surgery in remote villages of Nepal. And we enlisted the help of a group of monks because they were trilingual, English, Nepalese, and Tibetan. And they helped us go to villages. This is in Marfa. They would help us go to villages and have the villagers come, and we give them an initial eye test. This is called the Lazy E eye chart. Most of the people are illiterate there, so they don't know their letters. But in this case, they know if a letter is going this way, or this way. And so our monks helped us pre-screen patients for surgery. They would perform the surgery in a school classroom. They would be patched up here. And the next morning, we lined them up and we would do what was called the reveal. And when they took the patches off, they fell to their feet. They started just dancing and singing. They could see again. And they're crying. I'm crying. It's just amazing to see. And I got to go to Nepal with the Explorers Club, but also as a volunteerist. A volunteerist. If you're going to travel, why not do one little tiny thing on that trip to help the people that you meet? One little tiny thing. And the theory behind that is the theory of the starfish. And the parable goes like this. There's a beach littered with starfish. And there's a little boy, 10,000 starfish, little boy, picking up a starfish, throwing it in the ocean. A man comes by, and the man says, "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" And the kid says, "Well, starfish are on the beach, they're trapped, and I'm throwing them back in the water." The man says, "What difference does it make? There are 10,000 starfish." And the little boy says, "Well, it made a difference to that one, and it made a difference to that one." And that's the parable of the starfish. And so we went and we saw about 600 patients, and of the 600, many of them just needed reading glasses, which we called magic sewing glasses, because typically women couldn't sew anymore because they couldn't see. So we gave them magic sewing glasses, $2. But for them, it changed their life. And this is what that scene looked like. So if you could be going on a trip and you can lend a hand wherever you go, it can make a little bit of difference. And that's why I decided to write this book, to encourage people to be volunteers. Now, you can be a volunteerist. You could go for 6 months and build homes for Habitat for Humanity. You could go for 4 hours. Cruise ship comes into Barbados. You know, you get off the cruise ship and you have to walk through a village full of crap that they're trying to sell you. You know, touristy kinds of things, t-shirts, funny hats, with funny sayings on them. Well, instead of that, there's a group that will pick you up and you can help out at an animal shelter. Or you can help out at a homeless shelter for 4 hours, then go back on the ship and play bingo. Go back and have your buffet. But for 4 hours, you've met the locals and you become a volunteerist. And that's the theme behind being a volunteerist on a trip. And there's a group called Volunteer Match. You don't have to have a passport to be a volunteerist, as I say in the book, volunteermatch.com, 100,000 volunteer opportunities. It's like match.com for volunteers. I put in there and I say, tell me volunteer opportunities in Denver. And once a week, I might get 40 opportunities to volunteer from that. You can also be a volunteer by taking 5 pounds of sanitary napkins and bringing them on your trip. Boom, you're a volunteerist. And this group, Pack for a Purpose, will ask you where you're going and tell you what they need. I'm going to Cuba, and they said Band-Aids. Bring Band-Aids and toothpaste. That's what they need. That's what apparently it costs too much money or there's a shortage. There's another group called Hope Floats. You tell them you're going on a cruise, they ask you what ports you're at, and they line up for you volunteer opportunities. Totally vetted, totally safe. They come tell you where to take a cab so you can help out. And it's great. You meet the locals that way. Even here in Colorado, you can get your hands dirty for Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado and build trails. One of my favorites is Shelter Box USA. This is a brilliant idea. When a crisis develops, they ship
Jeff is lecturing at CU Boulder right now.
shelter boxes.
Jeff is lecturing at.
Somebody needs to go on mute.
Got him.
Shelter box. Brilliant. They send this to this disaster area, and it's got all the tools and kit you need to get back on your feet. So that was a smart idea. You could go to the Florida Keys Wild Bird Center and volunteer. Do they give you, you don't get to walk around like a pirate. Unless they train you, you're gonna clean cages, but you're a volunteer. And you've been on a trip and you've lent a hand where you've gone. I went to Las Vegas to see the volunteer opportunities there. This woman puts together baby bundles for new mothers. Some new mothers, she said, one new mother had the baby go home in the father's sweater, and they didn't even have a car seat. So she pulls 60 of these together and needs volunteers. And then this group, Lighthouse Charities, they've served 170,000 with food pantries, job training, and English as a second language. And then this group does a food program where they literally need 100 to 200 volunteers every day to feed underprivileged kids in Nevada schools. So you go to Las Vegas, instead of spending all your time at the craps table, take 4 hours and volunteer for a group like this. And then you're volunteers. Fundraising, here's a couple that didn't ask for presents for their honeymoon. They asked you to donate money for their Valo moon. And this woman held the toughest car wash. That stopped cars. I said, how does that work? Well, we can't reach the top of the cars. So we call it topless because we can't clean. We're not going to, ladders aren't safe. So we're not going to, so I'll go, great. Big sign, topless car wash. Crowdsourcing, of course, those are other ways of doing this. Now, important when you go on any kind of vacation. When you go as a volunteer on vacations, doubly important to stay safe. And many of you know these rules. Bottled water only. You sit down, you do not order a tuna fish sandwich in many of these countries. What you order has to be temperature-wise, hot food. No salads. You need your inoculations. Passport Health is based in Boulder. They'll tell you what you need for a particular country. don't pet the dogs, don't pet the cats, don't pet the monkeys, you know, especially the monkeys. Stay away from the monkeys. And be situationally aware. This is not the place to bring your jewelry. This is not the place to wear bling. Leave the bling at home and get medical evacuation insurance. And then on these trips, your two best friends. Purell, we were bathing in this stuff, and this is pre-COVID. And Dial Rescue, which is colostrum, which is for well, I did a real rookie move. And the last day of my trip to Nepal, after 10 days of having no food, I saw this. And then departure, the VIP departure lounge at the Nepal International Airport. What could go wrong? What, it's wrapped in plastic. It's in the VIP. Well, I made a big mistake. I didn't realize until I was over the North Atlantic. And that was very uncomfortable. So the expedition has not ended until you put the key in your door at home. Then the expedition is over. So this is what I say. What I say is lend a hand wherever you go. So that's kind of my exploration talk, and had this great life of adventure, which in 2022 went sideways. My kidney failed. I had chronic kidney disease. And my kidney was not happy. I was not happy. And when the nephrologist says it's time, he means it's time for you to do two things. Go on dialysis and look for a kidney. So this is my exploration. To find somebody to donate a kidney. And I'll tell you a little more about that. 35 million people have chronic kidney disease, which means your kidney is not doing its job. It's not doing its job. You can slow the progression, but there's no cure. You slow the progression by drinking lots of water, by avoiding potassium, by avoiding a lot of protein. And 14% of adults have chronic kidney disease. And it's based on your creatinine level and what's called glomerular filtration rate, GFR. GFR, when you're young and healthy and a teenager, should be about 80, 90. As you get older, it drops to perhaps 60, 40, 50, 60. Mine was 8. Mine was 8. So the time had come. And there are 93,000 people waiting for a kidney. Well, I'm sorry, 103,000 people are in desperate need: heart, lung, liver, pancreas, kidney. Liver you can donate while you're still alive. They take a piece. They take a piece of your liver, put it in the recipient, and it regrows. And your liver regrows. Amazing. And kidneys. You can live with one kidney. Heart, lung, probably pancreas. Somebody has to die for you to live. So 93,000 people are waiting for a kidney. 90% of this number. And 519,000 people are on dialysis, which is a slow living death. There are 13 people on the waiting list waiting for a kidney who die every day because their health deteriorates to the point where they can't get a transplant. They die every year. 27,000 kidney transplants a year from both deceased or living donor. Living donor transplants, however, have stagnated for the last 25 years at about 5 to 7,000. That means most of the people on a waiting list of 3 to 5 or more have to wait for somebody to die, and then they get a deceased donor. But a deceased donor is not as good. It lasts 15 to 20 versus 20 to 25. And a deceased donor could come with hepatitis, which they can cure now. Before they would throw those out, but now they can cure that. So let me introduce you to my little friend. This is my guide for, no, not, this is my friend. That's me. My guide for 2 months. I was hooked to this machine. 3 days a week, 4 hours at a shop. Tried to make it productive. The people around me were watching Price is Right. I was actually trying to read a book, make it somewhat productive. And then I graduated from this in-clinic to a home machine. And this comes with a whole other set of instructions and complications, and the alarm goes off. And as Joan will attest, then I blow a whistle, and she comes running, and it's not great. It's less terrible. PD machine. I knew I needed a living kidney. I needed a kidney from a living donor. Well, not so easy, because only 5,000 to 7,000 people a year donate their kidneys. And yet, by donating a kidney, something miraculous comes over the donor. They get this feeling of their life having meaning, that they saved another life. But how do you find that person? Well, with that marketing background I mentioned to you, I went crazy. I just treated myself like a political candidate looking for votes. I posed with my daughter's dog, a photographer donated his time, came up with a slogan, had the dog in it, thought maybe with the dog I'd get some dog lover. I was looking for any angle I possibly could. Sign on the car, Grandpa needs a kidney, postcards, flyers, a website, of course, gotta have a website, which is still up, by the way. You can see all of this. Billboard, donated. You don't get if you don't ask, right? This was donated for me. Billboards, television appearances, well, it saved my life. A reporter heard about it, knew I wrote a book about volunteering, and now I'm a volunteer who needs a volunteer. And it appeared on Fox 31. Another story appeared on Denver 7. And a woman in Boulder who lived not more than 2 miles from me, who I've never known, never met. She saw it. She actually had it on her phone. She signed up for alerts from TV7 on her phone, talked about it. She said, I've been thinking about doing this. I'm going to donate. And she sends me an email. Tears. And I thanked her profusely. Then I wanted to, not creep her out. Say, I didn't want to let go. How's it going? Because you can't just donate. You have to go through medical testing. Astronaut level medical testing. And there are stories of people who have decided to donate their kidneys. They go have their testing, and the doctor at Porter, Advent Health in Boulder, in Denver. Porter says, you're not donating. You're going to the emergency room right now, because that person had an aneurysm ready to blow, had a widowmaker. And the fact that that guy stepped forward to donate saved his life. So that's karma. But so people who decide that they will donate get the best medical test of their life. And these doctors, they know there's no warehouse full of kidneys. These doctors will go over you with a fine-tooth comb up and down to see. They're looking for an excuse not to let you donate, because the last thing they want to do is cause harm. Well, 15 months ago, here I am, shortly after receiving kidneys installed right here. It's miraculous, incredibly lucky, and it's like plug and play. They actually leave the old kidney where it is, and they put the new one right here. And it took me about 8 months recovery, tired, lots of naps, had to be careful with too much exercise. And I'm 100% now. I've skied 15 days this week. It's a miracle. It's really, and this is my adventure. This is my really big adventure. And I took solace in 2 quotes. One from Mahatma Gandhi: if you don't ask, you don't get it. If you don't ask, you don't get it. Ask. So I got billboard company to donate, photographer to donate. I had a marketing team giving me ideas, and that's what I I mentor kidney patients now, and this is what I say. This is your new job, to find a living kidney for yourself. And you've got to spend time on it every day. And you've got to, don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to ask, the way it goes is you don't say, would you donate a kidney for me? Puts people on the spot. They get very uncomfortable. But if you tell them your story and let that sink in and ask them to tell others their story, people will step up. And there's a group called Kidney Donor Athletes who've all donated one kidney. I went to lunch with them and I said, you guys can't do me any good. You all have one kidney. But they're running races, they're climbing Kilimanjaro, called Kidney Donor Athletes. Just the biggest group of empaths I've ever met. It's just a great group. But my other favorite quote is this: you don't know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. And that kept me going. I actually saw that outside of breast cancer doctor on the way to my nephrologist. And I saw it and I looked it up, and that saying just kept me going during my two-year search. And now kidney is happy. I'm happy. So thank you so much. I've got books back there. You're happy to, you're welcome to go on Expedition News. I write about exploration every month. Leonard and I, we trade stories from time to time. I just made a note about this moon pie stunt. I think it's great. So he talks about space. I talk a little bit about space, but mostly I talk about just exploration. Just these people that put themselves out there to learn what's on the other side of the hill. So thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, are there any questions? Or viewers at home?
Zoomers, do you have any questions? Somebody will have to unmute if you want to ask a question.
I have a question.
Yeah, I've muted
Yeah.
everybody, so if they have a question, go ahead.
When's your next trip?
Yeah, Cuba. And in May. Friend of the Explorers Club. There's a telescope there, actually. There's a University of Havana telescope, which it's hard to get information on it, but it's a refractor. Last I learned, it's inoperative, and they're looking to raise money. So I want to go down there. I want to see it. I want to find out, what the status of that is. Plus the whole cultural visit to Cuba. And to that end, I'm on Duolingo. So I'm able to now, yep, it's on your phone. You learn all the languages. 220 days is my streak. Duolingo, yo tiene un azul bolígrafo. I want a blue pen. Great, right? Perfect. Yeah. Oh, and I'm thinking about the 2026 eclipse in Iceland. It's the zone of centrality, right? No, the sun zone. It's going to be out in the water, but the zone is still going to hit Reykjavik, which is an easy flight, by the way, from Denver. But it's just lodging is always the issue for that, and getting away from the city.
Especially during an eclipse.
It's what?
Especially during any.
Oh, during an eclipse, yeah. Yeah, Motel 6 is not 6. It's like $350. Yeah, out there.
I think you can see that one in Portugal and Spain.
Yes.
At sunset.
Yes, I think it's longer, and it's longer. That's right. I think it's a maximum of 2 minutes of totality. Well, it's a short one, not like the one we just had. Any other questions? Yes,
I'm interested in how obviously there's risk involved. My question's about risk. So, like climbing Mount Everest and all these people are on, there are too many people or whatever. But, how do you deal with risk when you're doing something? Even worried about someone stealing your wallet or in Europe or something.
oh yeah,
That's not so much, you gotta prepare, of course. But, and you've already been through this risky thing, the kidney, you know, how do you deal with riskier things?
Well, it occurred to me when I was going for a walk around my neighborhood, tripped and fell face first on the curb. And I had 3 stitches. Called Joe, come pick me up. I was right around the house. So first of all, risk can happen anywhere. We know that, and most risk happens in the home, but we know that too. But for me, it's planning. It's planning. So no jewelry, cheap Timex watch. From my wallet, I take I don't need to bring my YMCA card to Nepal. Don't need to do any of that. Keep the wallet in the front, trust nobody, sorry to say. And keep no headphones when you're walking down the street in Kathmandu. Kathmandu is a city that wants to kill you. It wants to kill you. I don't know how many people been to Kathmandu. It's Kathmandu. Wires everywhere overhead. A spaghetti of wires. Every home's got 10 wires coming in. Holes in the sidewalk right in front of you. Dogs, rabid dogs, sketchy people wants to kill you. So you have to have your wits about you. And medical evacuation insurance. I don't even want to think about it. It's like $300. If something happens to me, pick me up, fly me to the next Western style hospital. So for Nepal, that would be Singapore. So that's right. And also bottled water. And be careful what you put in your mouth. And, you know, I have a habit of biting my nails. Don't do that in Nepal. You know, just some habits you have to be really careful about. Wash your hands, Purell. Yeah, you have to be careful about all of that. And don't order a tuna fish sandwich. Any other questions?
In your drink. No ice cubes.
And brush your teeth with bottled water. You know all this. Yeah, you just can't relax, and you should.
That isn't always that, there's, that the country you go to is dirty or whatever.
Right.
It depends on, because we don't.
It does, exactly.
Going to London, Berlin.
Not worried about it.
Yeah.
Not worried. When you go to a third world country, Cuba, for instance, you have to be careful.
Our systems are used to.
Right.
Whatever, you know, wherever we live, right? And sometimes it's just.
We don't have the gut biome that can handle
Yeah.
nasty piece of meat. Oh, well, the meat's got to be cooked. So that should be all right. No steak tartare. Any other questions? Well, thanks, everybody. It's been a real treat. Techno Richard.
All right, guys, Zoomers, that's a wrap. And so we hope you enjoyed it and thank you very much and good night. Everybody here, we're going to do the big picture. We'll do that before we even put up the chairs or anything.